Deadman is finally here and it's been awesome. This is not the kind of video that I normally make, but after all the guides and hype that I made, I felt like I had to post something about my progress so far. I will be the first to tell you it is a little rough. In the week before the tournament, just had some stuff going on and couldn't prepare like I wanted to. So most of these clips are just dubbed over afterwards. But excuses aside, so far I had an awesome time and I wanted to put everything together so people could see how it actually went past all the theory crafting. So here you go, hope you enjoy. Alright, here we go. The alt's headed right to Shanty's Pass, gonna do Tourist Trap. The main's headed down the melee route, gonna get 25 agility for Grand Tree, do Tree Gnome Village and Waterfall. I lost a couple clips and may or may not have died to the Hobgoblin down here getting the Pebble. This is the Deadman chaos you love to see. There are so many people here. There's 50 of us all running around with our own Warlord. This is what it's about. Tree Gnome Village completed. The alt just finished Tourist Trap. Those are both gone on agility and we're headed right to the pyramid. Waterfall completed. That was 53 strength, 59 attack, 42 combat. Trying to do Grand Tree, just ran out of protection, cannot get my Black Demon. After like 10 minutes of trying, I could finally attack it. There's so many here, I don't even think mine spawned. I tried every demon, still couldn't attack them. Unfortunately, I lost a couple clips here, but essentially traded my ult for some money, bought some Dragon Bones, went to the altar, got my prayer level, and trained the remaining defense to get into bracket 2. Picked up the Sigil of Resilience with some of the money that was left, and came here to do Monkey Madness. The Resilience Sigil is so insane, look at this. 18 HP. A couple seconds later, 19 HP. It's so good for doing these quests. Have to eat some food here and there, but generally for these things, all this poison, none of it matters, you out heal it. Such an underrated Sigil. After a painful jungle demon fight with the starter staff, that's Monkey Madness completed. And boom, with the remaining money I have left, that's a D-skim right into the deposit box. Looking good, 2 hours in. Quickly picked up the Mithril Full Helm for the Warriors Guild coming up. Before I went onto the second bracket, I traded my buddy for the money that he made from the Agility Pyramid. He didn't feel like playing anymore, and I was not going to deny that GP, but I'm glad I was able to earn my own skin. Spent that money on some magic XP so I could get a little bit ahead there, bought some jewelry to get around the game, and the Sigil of the Eternal Jeweler since it just saves money buying jewelry, which is so expensive in the beginning. I also reset my respawn location to the Grand Exchange so the Ring of Returning would send me there, and I got my first Wilderness Slayer task. I was going to do Slayer with the protection, but I decided to go to the Warriors Guild right away since Black Dragons was kind of a dog task. And this is where I think I made one of my first mistakes. I picked up the first 2 defenders. No one was here. I was literally one of the first people in this world, but I was like, man, I'm wasting my protection. So I went to the wilderness to try and do these dragons, and it was just awful. So I ended up going to Turiel to skip this task, trying to alch efficiently while I'm going. He resets my streak and everything, but I'm able to complete some tasks. Every time I Turiel skipped, I just went back to Castilia to see if I could get a better wilderness task since you're way more likely to get emblems and stuff out there. Here we get Ents, which is more dog but I went out here, killed a couple just to see how it would go, and I was able to secure a tier 5, which at this point was awesome. Remember, we haven't even had a breach yet, there's almost no tier 5s in the game, that was super good. Skipped a few more tasks until I got myself Moss Giants in the wilderness, which is actually something I felt like doing. This was so good. I got so many mossy keys. I only get tier 1 emblems because they're under level 100, but still, super worth it. I think we'll see these clips later, but Browfighter dropped so many alchables. This is such good GP early, and they dropped so much with the increased drop rates. It was 3 times, and you get double keys in the wild anyways. Completed that Moss Giant task, and look at that inventory full of tier 1s. They were dropping like crazy. I also managed to get 18 mossy keys from 130 Moss Giants, so they're even better than 1 in 10. Next task was okay. Got some lesser demons. Was able to pick up some emblems, but they're tier 1 since lesser demons are under level 100, but got some multi drops too, like looting bag notes, which are alright. Since my protection ran out, I really wanted to get that additional prayer XP. I had the magic level for wind blast and everything, so I went on to barrows and got myself that lamp. Another task was Moss Giants, and I was leveling up so quickly that this took me into the 4th bracket already. You can see already, even without the best strategy of even pushing defenders, there are 6 people in these worlds right now. We're just under 5 hours in, and at this point I feel like I'm killing it. I'm literally the 6th person in these worlds for this bracket. I don't have the clips for it, but I went back to the Warriors Guild after a couple of those Slayer tasks, and it was so packed. That's why I decided to keep pushing the brackets and come back later, because it was less than 1 Cyclops per person. It was so crowded. But here we got the Dragon Defender, and I go on to do some quests here to go get the requirements for Perilous Moons. This, I think, was another mistake, but we'll get to that in a second. I do enter the Abyss for the rune crafting levels, just make some chairs in my house to get the construction level, and then I complete Sea Slug to get the fishing levels. We get ourselves access to Varlamore here, and then we complete Twilight's Promise so we can do Perilous Moons. So this, I think, was one of the most critical early game mistakes. I seriously underestimated how tough it would be to kill the Blood Moon. I knew that it healed based on how much it hit, but I did not test and did not understand that if it hits all 3 times times that it gets this massive extra like plus 50 healing every time. Same problem with the Eclipse Moon. You end up hitting 1s and 0s because it reduces the damage you do as you build these stacks of blindness or something as you get hit. It was so terrible. It's not just a DPS check, it's really a defense check, and me going in there with Mithril was totally doomed, and Rune wasn't even good enough. I think this quest was absolutely huge to do for Slayer. You get so much XP, but I feel like I really should have delayed this until I had some Barrow's armor at least. The order of operations here just totally screwed me, and I lost like at least half an hour, if not more. In any case, that jumped me up to 68 Slayer, and I decided to go use these keys that I got from the Moss Giants earlier to get some drops from Bryophyta. She consistently drops Rune, and you don't get any XP in here, but it was still worth it to just make some early game money. More Lesser Demons. I could really only get 2 tasks. I decided to go and do Tourist Trap on this count as well. I wanted some agility. I swear to God I get caught by this guard every single time I do this quest. It happened on my ult 2 in Deadman. I've heard this rumor that it's based on where the guard is placed, but I waited till he was far away and I still got caught. In any case, completed this, put it on Thieving because I wanted to do Desert Treasure here. This is another big mistake. I really think I should have taken Desert Treasure in hindsight instead of doing Monkey Madness 2. I took Monkey Madness 2 so I could train in that dungeon potentially later, and that I wanted to do the Desert Treasure requirement quest because the XP from them is so good. But I think ultimately this was a mistake. It does feel good to skip a bunch of those early levels for skills like mining by doing Dig Site, but the range XP and stuff that you get from Temple of Ikov, it's just not worth it. The momentum you get in Deadman mode is everything, and if I had just used that to go and buy chins or something instead, I could have got those 50 range levels or 40 range levels you get so quickly, it doesn't even matter. In any case, it's what I chose to do, so here I am doing Dig Site, and I got everything in my first try. I got the special cup, I got everything in the very first panning, which is super funny. Completed the Dig Site quest, got myself the XP for 55 mining, and went on to go do some thieving in Varlamore because it was just super chill and easy to get me to 53 for Desert Treasure. So very sadly, I missed the first breach. I was ready, I was waiting for my chat box to go on, and I didn't see anything in the chat. I didn't know you could talk to Purdue to see where it was, so I literally just couldn't find it from my world. I tried switching worlds, I tried logging in, it didn't show up in my chat box, so I missed it. But here I am at the second breach, doing my best with the D-Skimmy, totally scuffed setup. Really probably should have come here with Mage at this point, but I thought, hey, I have these relics, I'm gonna try it. I did get some drops, I don't know if I actually deserved a tier 5, and then I got one banged by Jad. Had the wrong prayer on, he's attacking so many people, and I got hit by a Kriara Mage attack and a Jad Mage attack and got absolutely one banged. Luckily all my stuff was still on the ground, so I came back, picked it up, tried to still compete. It was absolute chaos. This was just so much. Them adding Duriel 321 as a killable NPC at these breaches is just so funny. I love this. And look at everyone just getting smacked by Kriara. This is so fun. This is what it's about. This absolute just chaotic environment, trying to get tier 5s, trying to get rune drops. Everything on the ground feels so important. Anyways, sold my tier 5s, got a couple of that stuff done, and then it was back to questing. So I could finish Desert Treasure and actually get myself back on track for Slayer so I could start bursting. Boom, Desert Treasure completed. That gets us the spells we need to get back on track. The deposit box here is looking super healthy, just taking these things that I'm getting from Slayer, selling all those drops from Bryophyta, just buying additional Dragon Scimitars and throwing them into my deposit box. I was delaying doing the Spiritual Ranger task because I thought it was so bad, but I ended up actually going in the wilderness doing it, and it turns out that they drop a lot of tier 5s. Never underestimate Wilderness Slayer. You can see here in only about 30 KC, I've got myself 2 tier 5s already. I got a Sigil the Infernal Smith. Now I'm feeling good. Quick million GP. Instantly buy myself Menacing Mage for 500k. Just a good sigil to go train magic with, especially when I have bursting. Back to Spiritual Rangers. You can see got a couple ecumenical key drops, and I just keep getting these tier 5s. There's another one. This task has gotten me 5 or 6 tier 5s already. They just come so often in Wilderness Slayer. And Lesser Demons again. I have done the same task of Lesser Demons and Moss Giants 10 times. So funny. So from that Perilous Moons quest KC, I got myself a little bit of loot, and one of the funniest things was Swamp Tar. People who wanted a 3-tick were buying this stuff for like 1k each, so it's normally such a trash drop. They're 1 GP each, and there I am selling it. I end up selling all that 100 something Swamp Tar for over 100k. And back at the Lesser Demons, doing my task, and I see the first very scary, dangerous thing. Luckily, these two teams, or whatever's going on here, one team against some other guy, are not focused on me, and they come to switch to move on me, but I am out of there. At this point, I'm getting tired. I think it's time to wrap up my night, and I'm finishing off at right around rank 3 Slayer. And that was the end of day 1. Here's the beginning of day 2. Wanted to get the combat XP from King's Ransom, so here we are doing one small favor. Well, I was rank 3, but while I was sleeping, someone got 93 Slayers, so I'm a bit behind. Go back to the GE, buy a red topaz, crush that one as well, crush a 3rd one, crush a 4th one, crush a 5th one. Finally. Finished one small favor, used both lamps on Slayer just to get farther ahead since I spent so much time doing this quest, and next up just going to do King's Ransom. Finished off the training ground with my trusty Mithril Spear P, which gave me a 1.2 million XP. Back to the Lesser Demons to finally go back to doing my task, and we're trying to get PK'd by this solo guy in a water staff. Doing all this questing with Live, they give me that free agility XP, was so helpful for these shortcuts, it saved me so many times. And right into the Sigil of Adroit, which is totally useless. The PKers are really starting to roll in now, but none of them had time to get these shortcuts and they just keep saving me. Then I got the most unexpected drop of all, a Lesser Demon Champion Scroll. Thank God, that's what I needed this RNG for. This guy shows up on my map, he looks relatively harmless, so I'm like, whatever. He then decides to try and take my Dust Devils, which is an interesting call since he did not bring a face mask. And he just completely eats shit and dies. I love Dead Man. This task gave us a nice Sigil of the Adroit and a useless Sigil of the Barrows. Took me a couple of tasks, but finally got myself a superior, and from that we got a lot of loot. Got a supply drop there, dragon plate skirt, rune items. At this point I bought overloads and realized that I could start barraging. It was a little painful in the beginning since it only took me to 94 and then 95 magic, but it was so worth it. The DPS increase was insane. Quickly finished off another task and look at all those emblems. Finally got myself the level 4 Necreals and moved on to doing tasks in the Wilderness Slayer Cave with those. Got my first superior there and got a few more okay items. Laren's keys dropping like crazy. Because Necreal ashes are so good, bought myself the Sigil of Devotion so I get some passive prayer XP while I'm training there. Here's the sigil setup I was using: Slaughter, Devotion, and Menacing Mage. Menacing Mage super used for Necreals because those superiors just drain your health. And here's where the money really starts rolling in. Tier 5s are not that common at this point. There's only been a couple breaches. It's pretty hard to get them. They're worth 1.5 million bounty hunter points each, which you can buy all kinds of supplies, and as I'll learn later, you can buy some alchables that alch for 130k each for 500k points. So these are essentially a couple 100k each, and they're just flying in. All those wilderness kills drop so many emblems, and things over level 100 are always going to drop tier 5, so things like Necreals, Heavy Demons in the Wilderness just go crazy. Anyways, we're rolling up to this next breach, trying to get ourselves involved. Only have Blitz, but can pot Barrage here, and you can see in this bracket, I believe we're still in bracket 3 here, it is just absolutely crowded. There is no way to get any KZ. You can't see shit. Even taking off all of your Entity Hider and stuff like that, you can see it's still chaos. I turn off these overheads relatively soon, but getting drops is just impossible. Things are dying instantly. I have some chance on these mage creatures, these mage rated 2 bosses, I can get 1 or 2 hits in, but it's just so tough. You can already see everyone's just kind of casting, trying to telegrab everything they can. Stuff dies in 1 to 2 hits. It's chaotic. It's still a ton of fun. There's so much loot on the ground. It's cool to see. You see people getting KO'd and all this stuff. They're still really fun. So just finishing up that breach, it says we made about 700k or so here in the looting bag, but it's really this overvaluation of chitin. That's what drops from the breaches to make overloads, but it's so common it's completely useless. Got attacked a couple times in Wilderness Slayer Cave, so picked myself up some extra D boots while I was just cooling off waiting for PKers to go away. And then I was back at the Necreals trying to burst some more Slayer XP. And oh boy, the teams are now starting to roll through. They have actual gear now. It's still just Mystics, but with me and Monk Ribs, I'm completely defenseless. Same old grind, just bursting Necreals. Pulling Sigils, but so far nothing too good. Sigil Finality, pretty useless. Makes your special attacks always hit, but it's just not good. This clip just shows how good this Wilderness Bursting is. I get not 1 tier 5, not 2 tier 5s, but 3 tier 5s in a single clump of Necreals. Remember, 1 tier 5 ends up being about 400k cash. Here we are, another superior. Love that 32k XP drop. And got some decent loot and always guaranteed Laren's key. Can't hurt. And the defensive casting finally takes me out of bracket 4 and into bracket 5, level 111. Spent about the first half of my protection finishing up that Necreals task, turned in my emblems, and now I've got 80 million points. At this point, I've already got 94 magic and I want to keep training my melees, so I go back and do a Spiritual Mages task instead of doing Barrage and pick up a few D boots. Managed to pull a second pair as well as another Sigil of Adroit. Still useless. At this point, just selling off some sigils and some of the items I've got. You can see D boots going in for 800k each and just all in all collecting a nice 2 mil stack. Completed Dwarf Cannon so I could use it for Slayer. Love that this guy just drops it on the ground for me. Super helpful. Thanks, man. We've got the cannon. It's day 2. We're doing our first Abbey Demons task, and there's the whip. These things are going for 2-3 mil each. I was nowhere near the first person to get 85 Slayer, but things are looking good. And here we go, continuing our task, and a second whip. I think we're at a total of something like 30 KC. It's looking real good. Decided to go back, pick myself up some Sigil of Fortification just to spend my money on it, and it's a pretty decent protective sigil, as well as sigils aren't lost on death as long as they're in your bank, so just a nice safe thing to hold and not fill up my deposit box. Despite seeing this second abandoned cannon here, which looks pretty ominous, decided to go and try to do my task, but I was watching where people could come from right away, and I was quick on this one, and once again, they still don't have the agility shortcut, even though we're in the 5th bracket. Absolutely huge for dodging PKers. They try to run around, and thankfully these teams weren't smart enough at this point to actually come from 2 directions, but we'll see they adapt later. Just using this low risk spot, just risking a DSim, training my melees again back at the Spiritual Mages, just trying to get a couple stats while I wait for those multi areas to cool down. And we pick ourselves up another Dragon Boot. And we got ourselves another one. This 1 in 32 drop rate is pretty nice. I thought this clip was pretty funny. They added these regional breaches where instead of being a very specific area, it's something like all of northern Kandarin, which is kind of a weird description since Kandarin runs from like the Fremennik province all the way down to, you know, Castle Wars is all technically Kandarin, and I saw my player indicators on, saw Solo Mission was here, and figured I'd ask him what's going on, but looks like he also has no clue. TP's out. Went up to go check near Piscatores, because technically still Kandarin, seems pretty far north. Nope, no luck, totally lost. I think it's worth saying that at this point, besides that first hour, I wasn't really playing with anyone, I'm not really in Discord, I'm not watching any streams, so I'm trying to figure this all out on my own. I know people know where the breach is, I have no clue. And finally, I figure out where the actual breach is. I'm a bit late, about 5 minutes or so, but better late than never. I had the Sigil of Arcane Swiftness at this point, so I had 4 tech barrages, which is pretty good DPS, but I was kind of afraid to commit towards a scythe, and I think that's a trend that we'll talk about later. I'm going to make a video about all the mistakes I think I made. I learned a ton playing this Deadman. This is really the first one I think I played this much, but you can see these folks with scythes and shadows that I totally could have invested in and bought. They were only like 3, maybe 5 mil at most at this point, but I didn't want to spend that much money and risk it to these breaches, but you can see there's such low population here that I really did have a chance to get a lot more MVPs, and I managed to pull some with this Augmented Thrall, Barrage, Arcane Swiftness setup, but I think I could have done something a little bit better here. Pulled myself, I think, at least a couple MVPs, actually got on a mage super early, and with Arcane Swiftness I think it was mine, but couldn't get anything better than tier 5s. As you know from the Slayer parts that I was showing, tier 5s were raining in anyways, so I didn't know how good they were at this point that you could alch these halos for straight cash, but even for supplies I knew they were pretty strong, but I had so many. I mean, I would have got way more than I did at a breach by just going and doing more barrage tasks. But I got on this MA2 boss again really early, but once again secured myself just a tier 5. I absolutely cannot complain about my luck so far this Deadman, so it's fine. But yeah, I did not get anything lucky at these breaches. And that wrapped up this breach. I got myself 4 tier 5s, but you know, at this point I'm thinking, is it really worth me even going to these things? I can get way better stuff from the Slayer tasks, and getting MVPs is just getting harder and harder to do, so without an MVP it's really unlikely you get any of these wieldy weapons or anything like that. The Slayer caves were getting really hot, so I decided let's go check out Dust Devils in a different place, see how this goes, and yeah, I feel like things were panning out quite well. And this is where the luck really starts coming in. Boom. Sigil of the Guardian Angel. Easily a couple million sigil. We're still at day 2 at this point. People are really starting to want these to protect their bank. Super nice find. Every time I went banking, I would just kind of go check the wildy, see if it looked empty, and it seemed like at this point people were camping the Necreals, they were camping the Abyssal Demons, but they were leaving the Dust Devils alone, so I thought I'd just take those. The only downside is they don't drop tier 5s, but they do drop things like Sigil of Prosperity. You can see I'm up to 107 million points here already. I just got back-to-back sigil drops. Sigil of Guardian Angel just sold for 3.5 mil. Prosperity is going to sell instant 5.7 mil. Things are looking so good. At this point, I'm just buying all the best sigils in the game, just trying to protect my cash stack. Boom, titanium 11 mil, don't worry about it. That's what's amazing about these barrage tasks and why I wish I had kind of just committed to this earlier. Ooh, another sigil of devotion. But you can see it's just emblems, it's just these Deadman loot table drops, it's all so good. And you're risking almost nothing. Like you can come out here, you don't even need this auto cast staff if you don't want, you can just manually click. And Sigil of the Infernal Smith, another one. You just hit the table over and over. It feels like the rates that people are selling GP at this point, just for reference, is about 1 to 10 to 1 to 8, something like that, and it feels like I've got about a 50 mil bank in sigils already. Now that I got myself 87 Slayer, decided to do some much safer tasks here down at the Krakens. I felt really confident about freeze locking at that point. Haven't seen anyone in really strong gear, and they're 1 in 200, so it should be 1 in 50 with the drop rate I have. And 7 KC in, I see a blue light, but it's Sigil of the Bloodhound, which is okay, but not the best. We work our way down another whole 4 KC, really on the struggle bus at this point, done almost 10 KC, and there's the Trident. I bought the Sigil of Rampart, which is super good for defense and trying to escape, and oh, another 10 KC, another Trident. My luck this Deadman is just too good. At this point, what you're gonna see hit me later is I'm being a little complacent. I've got GE offers going in, which in case you don't know, if you die, they lose everything that you have in the GE. And I happened to see this in the chat. This was not an expected breach. This did not come at a time that was predetermined. This is the random breach that occurs once a day. So finished my KC and immediately was like, all right, let's go figure it out. Gonna go try north of Artie. This was was the final thing I was going to do for the day here pretty much, and took Meticulous Mage, Rampart, Arcane Swiftness, tried to just get myself some of that extra mage bonus and keep going with that barrage tactic. I really think at this point I should have been switching to melee. It's clear there's some things that you can barrage, but a lot of things like KBD, like there's just things that range is way better at if you want to stay far away, and melee is absolutely king with a scythe in a lot of these monsters. But we kind of lured these things behind the trees and tried to take them out, but everybody was just griefing this. KBD was also really terrible. It drains your stats, it poisons you, it's just the worst. I have some more footage from this breach, but pretty much I got 2 tier 5s. I did a lot of barraging. It's not too interesting. Don't know if I really got that many MVPs, but didn't secure anything cool. So anyways, I'm back to the Krakens, and I run into Coxie, who's trying to manipulate the market, keep the Trident prices high, which I can appreciate. It actually worked out pretty well. I ended up selling all the ones that I got for around 4 mil, so you can see I'm really not taking advantage of my bank, though. I mean, look, he's got a Slayer mask, he's got a Shadow. I really should have been doing the same thing. I think it's just, looking back at this, is painful. I was doing really well, but I feel like I could have just done so much more. I saw some people out there who were pretty scary at the old Krakens. They had some insane gear, so decided I'd try my luck again. Back in multi, back here, risking just a black mask and an ancient staff. Nothing too crazy, but picking up tier 5s, picking up plenty of stuff, just getting lots of drops. Feels good. Trover parchment's not too useful. And here's where you can see that complacency come in. I'm sitting here with a full inventory. I've got like 10 tier 5s, and I'm like, oh, I've already eaten all my manta rays, and I'm figuring out how I'm gonna eat this manta, drop this manta. I have so long to react, and I just totally miss it. They would not have got me at this shortcut, I'm 90% sure, and I just completely trolled it. I'm praying melee here. I'm worried about that. I start eating, but dudes have Void Wakers. They both come in here. 1 melees, 1 specs. It's just, I'm toast here. That was just so bad. So much complacency. I've taken things way too easy. That's a lot of money in emblems, as we'll find out, but it's okay. I've got 112 million points. I really only lost about a mil there. I have so much in the bank. I've got 50 million in sigils and stuff like that, so just buy some restores with those points that you don't lose on death, get myself 50k, sell some of those items that I had in the deposit box, just some dragon items from those first couple breaches, buy myself some sacks, and just get back to it. But I feel like at that point I was getting pretty tired. I clearly was just not taking things very seriously, not paying attention. It's just not good. So that was the end of day 2. Time to go to bed. Kicked off day 3 by running into one of the best looking PKers I've seen so far. He's in the highest level bracket in Red D, had an Adored crossbow. And unfortunately I got a Sigil the Guardian Angel on the ground and really want to go pick it up. He doesn't know that I got it, but he's camping it for a second. Eventually he ends up leaving, and I'm able to go pick that up, which is a nice 3.5 mil right back in the bank. One nice little trick was, even without the autocast staff, if you use the starter staff, you can put it on defensive and still get defense XP. Got myself another whip and headed out of there. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do at this point, wasn't sure if I wanted to go for max, but decided to go and get myself kick-started on farming by doing the Karamja Diary easy and just putting that XP on farming. Chins were going for a ton of money, and I sort of wanted to do my own hunter, so I decided to level up, do some falconry so I could go catch chins myself, and got myself to 53 hunter. Completed Eagle's Peak so I could use box traps, and then decided to head to the next breach, but this time using melee, since magic didn't seem to be getting as many MVPs as I had hoped. There's a lot of creatures that you just can't hit using magic, it feels like, or at least not without a shadow. Secured a couple of tier 5s, which at this point I probably shouldn't even been eating the food to pick them up, but got it anyways. Now here's the beginning of a pretty interesting mistake. The Zillion is isolated. I'm thinking, nice, MVP, I'm not even worried about PKs, and I'm pretty far from the safe zone. Varrock isn't crazy far, but I've only got a little bit of food, and you can see I'm a little bit alone. And I see this guy here who is pretty stacked. I've got the zombie axe, which is like 1.5 mil, so I feel like he thinks he can get me here. I'm already brewed down, which is just a bad call by me. Should not have been sitting here with lower stats. I can't even barrage right now, and he gets on me. He had a VLS and was just hitting like a truck. I made one pretty big mistake where I tried to get gap when I think I could have got around a tree. He seated around and was able to hit me, but I think I could have played it significantly better. I tried to make a run for the safe zone here, but eating most of my food to pick up these tier 5s, him with a VLS, I don't know, it was just too much. He barrages me at 35, and unfortunately, I go down. Really wasn't too bad of a death, lost a couple things, would have rather not lost a zombie axe, but I have so much cash at this point, it's not a huge deal. Decided to go and train some woodcutting while getting some planks, see how good the money from woodcraft was. It had recently dropped a ton down to like under 500k, so I wanted to give it a shot myself while it was cheap. It was pretty bad, did not make too much GP, spent about half an hour doing this, only made a couple 100k. After getting thwomped at that last breach with it felt like no defensive bonuses, I decided that I had to go do Underground Pass and Roving Elves by myself. For some reason, Underground Pass was already completed. I don't know why, but Regicide wasn't. I don't think there was any questline I took that required this, but I'll take it. Just had to make my way through the Underground Pass to go do the elf quests. The animation for planting this tree is so cool. I love this every time. And with only Regicide and Roving Elves, that is a Crystal Shield acquired. Decided to end day 3 by going after some additional whips and singles, just training my melee combats and trying to chill out a bit. And yeah, that was the end of day 3. And that's pretty much the end of my weekend and the end of this episode. I had to go back to work on Monday and do a bunch of other stuff in my personal life, so it took me a little bit to get this episode out and won't be able to play as much in kind of the coming weeks, but there's plenty more progress to be had. I'm still playing, and there's plenty more to show even within the last week. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I'm going to keep putting out progress videos for the rest of Deadman, and then make some other videos on kind of what I learned, mistakes, and all that. Just as a point of reference, I think I finished day 3 on the front page. Thanks for watching.